A Rakuho lands near the Ludo Republic border. The Rakuho contains a cache full of bind ropers. A general, whose name is Kairo Dan of Reika, comes to claim the Rakuho. Soon after, a Ludo unit of Brightheit arrives. However, he is able to overpower them by adopting the strategy of being a Brightheit himself. Another Rakuho is then noticed across the sky. The Rakuho seems to be heading towards Iki territory that is not inhabited by any being and also towards Reika. High Diviner Shubi then decides to find out where it is heading alongside Warrior Rensen, who provides backup. The second capsule eventually lands in a place least expected. The location in which it lands is Edgar Village. A particular individual who seems to be from the village has the suspicion that there is absolutely a substance that is edible in the capsule. This causes the other villagers to take the capsule and then boil it to depict a short experiment. Shubi, however, watches the whole scenery from a long distance. After much pressure, the capsule eventually splits open, and to the utmost surprise of everyone present, a naked young man comes out. He affirms to come from beyond the wall. This makes everyone bewildered and speechless. Almost immediately, a bandit storms the village. He then uses his Brightheit to take possession of the Rakuho treasure. The sheriff of the village, whose name is Alti Ariel, tries to save the village by making use of her own Brighthites. This is unsuccessful as the bandit traps her. She's unable to do anything in his grip. The naked youth that has gotten out earlier from a capsule gets a hold of a bind warper from the capsule and then successfully transforms into an entirely different Brightheit. Muga saves Alti and also destroys the bandit's Brightheit alongside the bind warper. However, the bandit survives, which is strange, but calls the naked young man an idiot, which he does over and over again. The translation of the word idiot in their language means Bakero. This is what Bid had called him. However, he mistook Bakiaro for a back arrow, so he adopted the name for himself. That is what propounded the name Back Arrow. Back Arrow takes off in an attempt to reach a wall that is far from him in his Brightheit, Muga. However, he falls from fatigue. A few moments later, Shubin and Rensen then go in to offer him assistance. Shubin affirms to helping him in a few days, and he also assures him that he will get him back to Edgar Village. It is at that time that Back Arrow learns more about the life that they live in the village. He also has knowledge of the bone of contention between Reika and Ludo. Shubi goes back to the capital of Reika to do thorough research into the text archive that was banned. The bandit, now in my strong castle in the capital of Ludo, displays his bind warper that appears to be broken. He then links his ordeal and adventure with the naked young man and the way his Brightheit was destroyed. The princess, however, terms the showing up of the foreigner as a tool for world serenity. However, the Ludo military coerced the Iki, who stands as the president, into retrieving foreigners, apparently against his own will. This caused the destruction of Edgar Village. Individuals of the Iki Defense Force stormed the village vehemently and resumed the mission of utterly destroying it. However, Atli, who cannot stand the sight of this, makes use of her bind warper, which she had inherited, to summon her Brightheit, who is Ryujo. Unfortunately, Ryujo did not perform any important function. Sheriff Elsa, seeing that a solution has not been procured, looks for another bind warper, which she eventually finds in Bakero's capsule. She makes use of the bind warper as a substance to transform into her Brightheit, who is recognized as Shadow. It is left for Shadow to defend the village, but unfortunately again Shadow appears incapable. Back Arrow summons his Brightheit immediately. His Brightheit is recognized as Muga. Muga succeeds in defeating Duster's Brightheit. As he does not only do just that, he successfully destroys Duster's bind warper. However, this does not cause the elimination of the wearer. Meanwhile, back in Reika, Shubi finds out about an ancient text which contains a prophecy. The prophecy is that when a newbie realizes his or herself, the entire world will experience destruction. Shadow Elsa's Brightheit comes forth from under the ground. It appears connected as a figurehead to the gigantic battleship Grenadga, who is flying at the time. Alongside Back Arrow's conflict with the Duster, the cooking battle poses a threat to the peace of Edgar Village. It did not only pose a threat to the village, it was a threat to everything around the environment of the village. The Emperor of Rekka, Zetsudaiden, shares bind warper armband salvaged from the Rakuho with his gangs in an attempt to get a hold of the foreigners. However, Bit takes the arrow's bind warper without his consent while he's asleep. The villagers get set to show him to the Ikki president. This is to get an apartment to stay in. In turn, later that night, Alti tries her utmost best to free Arrow to repay him for rescuing the villagers. She's unable to do this as Alsha puts a stop to this. Arrow, on his side, resorts to continuing as a prisoner as the villagers from Edgar are moved simultaneously to their new residence on the Grenager that Elsa pilots. Bit meets with the Ikki military in anger. He does this as an action to Elsha's expression of disappointment in him. The fact that Elsha affirms that she is disappointed in him as she expects more gets him perplexed, and so it causes him to join the Ikki military. Ikki's president instructs his forces to fire cannons provided to destroy Great Edgar. This is to prevent the ship from getting into the grip of Reika or even Luto. All of these leave Bit in awe. However, Bit quickly proffers a solution as he throws Arrow his bind warper. It works out as planned as Arrow uses his bind warper to summon his Bray Height. It is with his invocation of the Bray Height via Bit's Bray warper that he is eventually able to save the ship. After the whole ordeal, Arrow and Bit exit the place alongside the villagers of Edgar to find a new serene residence. Emperor Daiden, however, finds out about a past prophecy which propels Shubi's promise to apprehend Arrow by himself. There is a flashback to 15 years back. The flashback shows two friends while they were younger, Shu and Kai, alongside other kids of their age that are also from their village. The flashback shows where all of them are being forcefully given to Reika against their will. They are coerced into training to become soldiers. Shu then makes up his mind to take advantage of the opportunity to successfully manipulate Reika's system and way of doing things from within. Jolting out from the flashback, a group of 4 friends storm and get into the Ludo border, which is against norms. However, Sol Athens comes up with an idea that the Granada Dreadnought threads a path that is around the neutral zone. This is because it is used by traders as a route to get to the wall in the north. It is recorded to be the best route. Shu, Ren, and Reika's forces soon meet with them, after which an attack is orchestrated immediately. Alti and Arrow, on their part, summon the Bray Height to distract the troops, while Elsha also tries to direct the Granada towards Banquia in the northeast side. The 4 friends summon their Bray Height and adopt the method of using a decouple spray to vehemently stop the movement of the Grenaga. After experiencing the utmost defeat and disappointment, Arrow separates his Bray Heights into 4 different places. He then attacks and records victory over the height of the 4 friends. He transforms them back to their human form. Shu then deduces and understands that without doubt Arrow has the luxury of being able to access numerous Bray Heights. He is definitely not limited to a particular Bray Height. Shu takes an unexpected step of destroying all the weapons of Reika's army alongside their Bray Heights. He also offers to join forces with Back Arrow and Edgar Village. Shu is clearly impressed by everything Arrow has done, and this causes him to instruct Ren to go back to the Reika capital, as they are no longer teammates. He also instructs him to renounce his membership and announce his betrayal to Zetsudaiden. Shu is careless about whatever punishment is set to come after his betrayal. There's a flashback to 10 years back from the present time, where Kai and Shu successfully gain the honor of the Rekka Emperor. They are able to do this by finding a Rako diligently and also successfully overpowering the rebellious opponents. Back in the present times, Kai prepares to meet Shu and eventually sees him with a few villagers from Edgar in the Grenader. Shu will not succumb to returning to Rekka as a result of this. Kai is set to eliminate him immediately. Back Arrow, however, interrupts him, and they both are forced to summon their Bray Heights. Back Arrow is set to defend Shu as he had renounced his loyalty to Zetsudaiden, which is rather consequential. Back Arrow, knowing that no one will stand in for Shu, is bent on protecting him. Shu had already orchestrated a backup as he orders Dr. Sola Attain to fire a cannon from the Grenader, which was to be aimed successfully at the capital. The capital gets caught up in danger and destruction as Kai eventually resorts to going back. Kai could no longer proffer a solution as the opposing side seemed stronger at the time, which left him with no choice other than to exit the vicinity. However, alongside going back, he makes up his mind to cut off ties with Shu, his friend. They did not seem to be on the same side as he now saw him as an enemy and a threat. It would obviously have been a different case if Shu had agreed to follow him. Their friendship would not have been altered as it had been from their younger days. Shu, however, will not leave the side of Back Arrow as he had already made up his mind. Shu, however, is less bothered about this, as he states that he has successfully had people send out explosives to the capital, and that it is safe for them to head for the north wall quickly. They have to be there before anything suspicious is discovered. Back in the capital, Renson sets himself out to serve Kai Rodan, being accountable to him and upholding their relationship as master and servant with the required level of loyalty. Shu successfully guides the movement of the Grand Edgar as it moves without any complication. However, in Reika, Kai surprisingly keeps himself in detention so as to increase his strength. He is set on doing everything possible to destroy Shu. The Prime Minister, whose name is Tae, summons the Minister of Defense. He makes him the head diviner and saddles the responsibility of investigating the true cause of the explosion on him. He is to find out if the explosion was truly caused by the strength of the Grenadier. The Grenadier passes across Ludo and comes across a province called Walston Province. The province appears to stand alone without any political interference from other provinces. The Grenadier is later attacked by a Brehite that is operated by a less powerful pretty boy who is very young. His name is Bra. It is very easy for Back Arrow, who quickly defeats Bra. This is because he does not have the required level of strength to oppose Back Arrow. The boy escorts the Edgar leader back to his little abode that appears to be a farm. On this farm, there are other pretty boys like him living as refugees. All the boys had been adopted by Lord Walston. He did not adopt them to take care of them, but he did for his selfish purpose. His reason for adopting them was to use them for his wicked experiments and dreadful missions. Shu sets out to meet Lord Walston and plans to instruct Back Arrow to fight off the young boys. This is to breach a way for free entrance. Back Arrow is, however, not obliged to destroy the young creatures since he has to fight them to gain entrance into the farm. Walston is the one who adopts the boys for his selfish purpose, which is unknown to the princess. The princess will oppose Walston's action if she eventually finds out. However, something else happens as the pretty boys vehemently take all of Walston's bind warpers. After which they release Brehite to dominate his surroundings. This is done when Walston unexpectedly storms the farm without the knowledge that the young boys might have prepared for his coming. Eventually, Walston is forced to surrender, and the Grand Edgar continues its movement without any complications towards its destination away from the Walston province. The pretty boys record their liberty and are no longer refugees as they have successfully trashed their greatest fear. There is a particular wall that was watched by the northern general of Reika, whose name is Beitatsu. The Grenadier approaches it while the scrutiny is still on. However, back in the Ludo capital, Princess Fine Forte is angry as she scolds Lord Walston for all the wrongs he has done. She's unhappy about him working on experiments that are not authorized. He should have tried it with an animal other than the young pretty boys. She's also exasperated at the fact that he attacked the Grenadier without seeking her permission. The princess expresses more grief at the way Walston had administered things. There is no way it can be rectified, which is even more painful. Even with all of this, Walston is not willing to admit that he's wrong. He is unrepentant and still proves that there are good reasons for all the evil he had orchestrated. Eventually, he does when Commander Prax charges at him and cuts off his left arm. The Grenadier eventually reaches the wall. It was at this time that Arrow makes an effort to forcefully go through the wall, but this proves abortive. However, they did not stop at that as Shu also fires a cannon to breach through the wall. This also does not go well as there was no sign of progress. Unexpectedly, large vents show forth from the wall, causing a turbulent wind that is strong enough to blow off the Grenadier. Beitatsu makes an effort immediately to charge at the ship in his Bray height. This is interrupted by the Bray height of a commander whose name is Prax. The Bray height is flying at the time. Beitatsu's effort is abortive as he gets an injury. The Prime Minister of Reika, whose name is Taihawa, tells Beitatsu to retreat instead of further aggravating the situation with Ludo. Prax calls for Ero and the Grenadier to go to Ludo. Shu accepts without any opposition. However, the case is different for Ero, who makes up his mind to stay glued to the wall. Ero, on his part, is not prepared to leave the wall for any reason. He has to get through it as soon as possible. Ero continues to breach the wall with all of his strength and commitment as the Grenadier moves to My Strong Castle, which is located in Ludo. The Grenadier heads there to honor the invitation of Commander Prax Conrad, who is one of these 6 Supremes. Ero, at this time, was still on the wall as he had to climb the proposal to show up at the castle. However, in the region of its western border, the Raka army moved on with the gradual increase of its military into their territories. While they are solely busy trying to do this, only Ludo is set aside and preserved. Ludo is free from their confrontation at that time. This is probably because of Princess Fine and her approach to things. She appears kind most of the time, even with her complicated personality. However, back in the Maestro Castle, the Edgar villagers are comfortable with the warmth the princess has shown them. She invites them to come and stay at Ludo and also treats them properly, providing them with everything they need and ensuring that they enjoy comfort in the castle generally. The people on their path are delighted with this. Simultaneously, Ludo officials and Shu discuss the information that is brought to the table to be manipulated. Prax goes back to where the wall is and eventually succeeds in capturing Ero after much effort. After he has captured Ero, he also takes him to a powerful scientist who stays in Ludo for him to be checked and analyzed. Shu, however, rescues him to prove his loyalty alongside Bit. However, Prax, who is in a mask, makes an effort to apprehend all of them. Unfortunately, while the fight is on, the mask is surprisingly taken off, after which the figure behind the mask happens to be Princess Fine. She is infuriated and also possesses numerous personalities. She's prone to changes at different intervals. At the time, she's nowhere close to being calm. She prepares to eliminate all of them right on that spot they are in. In the utmost disbelief, as they are made to think that they have been in combat with Prax without the knowledge that it was the princess all along, they must protect the situation. The princess, still in her wild and difficult personality, is bent on killing all of them. She gives Ero a chase alongside Shu and Bit. Prax, however, shows up at this time to divert the princess's attention. She affirms to successfully eliminate them herself so as to protect the princess. Ero, on his path, is very exhausted, and it appears that he is very weak, hence unable to fight. His weakness causes him to devise a strategy to exit instead of facing Prax. He transforms into his Bray height and leaves with Shu and Bit. Princess Fine, however, goes back to the castle, retreating while she leaves the assignment of sending Shu and Bit to Prax. She believes that Prax is sure to carry out the task. The intense battle between Prax and the 2 men continues. They retreat and make an effort to go back to Maestro's castle. Ero, however, cannot remain in his Bray height form as he is forced to go back to his human form. Just as the fight is about to continue in its intensity, it gets interrupted by Dr. Sola, who prevents Prax from charging towards the men. He states that she is his sister and that he is the cause of the princess's problem. He tries his utmost best to prevent Prax from hurting Shu and Bit, but it proves abortive as Prax will not exit her surroundings until she eliminates them. After seeing that Prax will not listen to him, he sets up a bomb that explodes, causing them to escape. The explosion, however, renders her blind. It was later deduced that Sola's original name is Werner Conrad and that he left Luto without a choice after endangering the princess, causing her to get involved in a life-claiming accident. Back in Reika, Emperor Zetsu reverses the position of Prime Minister Tai, and he also trashes his unclean wealth. He brushes Reika up to attack Ludo and also takes charge of Lingaland in the quest to flaunt his ego. Zetsu confronts the general of the Lustar Emirates in the Bray Height fight. He eventually records victory as he defeats his opponent. He then calls for war immediately on Ludo. However, Princess Fine's personality experiences a switch again. Princess Fine, who now appears aggressive, announces war on Reika, who, in turn, is ready to attack Ludo. She prepares everything needed to overcome the battle. Even after deducing that their army is not up to the number of Reika's army, since they had declared war instead of peace, there was no other option than to settle for conflict. She also instructs Demon Shaft to get their battle ammunition ready. Kraus apprehends Arrow, Shu, Bit, and Sola. Meanwhile, he is unable to change to his Bray height as Dissonanza shows up unannounced. She takes them to the palace without much ado. On arriving at the palace, they get to meet the Supreme Rudolph, who is one of these 6 elders. However, the princess orchestrates a war between Elsha and Prax with the expectation that Prax will win and she will get the Grenadier for the war that is coming. If Prax wins, that will serve as a gift and compensation for all her exploits. Princess Fine is aware that Elsha might refuse the offer, and so she threatens to wipe out the entire village of Elsha if she proves a rebel. Elsha, left without a choice, decides to accept the request. The fight between Elsha and Prax then begins. Elsha is not willing to fight Prax as she just wants to save the people of Edgar from elimination. Unfortunately for Back Arrow, as he tries to escape the palace alongside others, they are confronted by Hans Paladin and Bray Heights that are fully equipped. Just as the ordeal begins, Muga unexpectedly spreads its wings and flies away with his friends. Arrow, however, devises another means by reaching for a place in Ludo and transforming Muga into a sword. It is with this sword that Elsha successfully defeats Prax. The princess's anger gets more aggravated as Elsha tries to talk her into placing her lovable personality on her opposite side. She's unable to control her exasperation as she uses a bind warper to change her form into a Bray height. Fortunately, her good personality overcomes the bad personality and takes charge of her. This happened rather unexpectedly. Princess Fine's personality changes are not in her power to decide as it changes randomly. A good personality steals the personality of evil and the bind warper. Elsha then resorts to collaborating with Fine as they can both rule together. They will then be able to protect Ludo from Reika. At this time, Emperor Zetsu, on his part, announces an intense merciless massacre of Pluto, and it is to begin with immediate effect. He is bent on destroying Ludo without looking back. They have grown as enemies to the point that he does not consider destroying Ludo as a pressing issue on his conscience. However, this is complemented by Princess Fine's rivalry. Also, she will do anything to get rid of Zetsu and his capital alongside his ego, even if her personality switch is a challenge. She tries her best to remain in her evil personality, which the Supreme Secretary of Ludo advises Princess Fine to hide the fact that she possesses a variety of personalities. He cajoles her to keep it a secret. She is to get herself prepared for the war that is to take place with Reika. In correlation with what Rudolph wants, Shu offers assistance to Damien Shaft in creating his bind warpers to strengthen the Ludo army against all forms of opposition. Princess Fine cannot handle all these things alone as she is obliged to see to the welfare of her people. Baron Sujita tells Fine that Reika's army is equipped more than the army in Ludo, and that they are 3 times the number of theirs. He also advises that they should orchestrate an attack on 2 locations, which are Viola and Sibo. The general of Reika's army, whose name is Gozenga, alongside his Bray height, who is recognized as Baryu, and General Bei alongside Senpu, lead the attack that is to be staged at Viola, which is noted as a border that is the closest to Maestro Castle. On getting to Sibo, Renshin successfully distracts Arrow, while Kai simultaneously confronts the Grenadier so as to get to where Shu is at the time. However, Shu had already devised a means to attack both of them and is only waiting for the appropriate time. The Grenadier continues its movement towards Viola as to keep Zetsu busy and distracted. Fortunately for Prax, she defeats the Reika generals, hence recording a victory and an upper hand over them. This exploit, however, did not last as Zetsu releases the Brehide weapon that is in his grip and vehemently hooks her to the wall. Prax has to save herself from the dangerous hold of Zetsu. The intense war between Luto and Reika had started, and as they would have it, both parties had been able to record a phase of victory over the other. As the war gets more vehement, Ero records a severe injury to his hand. This plays a role in hindering him from making use of his saber blow. This causes his strength count to decline drastically. Luto's plan to distract the armies of Reika until they approach the Viola Canyon is convinced. They plan to destroy the canyon alongside their enemies, and the only way to achieve this is to lure them in. Kai makes an attempt to prevent the Grenadier from closing up on the Reika army, but this is impossible as he appears very fatigued from severe injuries. After Rensen's conviction is backed up by Zetsu, she tries to rescue him with the use of her flying Brehide, which was already renamed at the time. The new name given to her Brehide is Repu. At first, Kai will not succumb to having her assist him, however, he later accepts her offer to help as they adapt the usual method of combining their Brehide to form a new one whose name is Gigan Repu. Although the generals of Reika are experiencing a huge defeat from Luto alongside the Grenadier, Kai shows up with Gigan Repu, a combination of Rensen's Brehide and his Brehide. He confronts back Ero's Muga with the intention of destroying Muga. The mini-battle begins as Ero is unable to depict his skills and true strength due to his arm that had been injured earlier. The injured arm further depicts his flaws and weakness, giving Kai an edge in the fight. Did you enjoy this recap? If you did, kindly like the video and subscribe to our channel so we can bring you the recap of the next